my name is Candace, aka Picasso baby, and today I'm going to be showing you how to create your very own Halloween moon. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, thank you so much for stopping back by to paint with me today. So as you all know, it is spooky season, and I'm going to be doing a few different Halloween paintings before the month is over, but I've got to do one for the kiddos first. So today I'm going to be showing you how to create your own super easy Halloween moon. Now before we get started, we're going to go over our materials, but as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on your post notifications so that you do not miss the next tutorial. Alright, so a few things you're going to need to do your painting today. Of course, you want to make sure you have a canvas. I am using a 16 by 20 inch canvas, but you can use the canvas size of your choice. It's completely up to you. You also want to make sure that you have a water cup with cool water for your brushes, a few different size brushes to paint with, acrylic brushes. You want to make sure you also have some napkins to dry your brushes off on whenever you wash them off. And then you also want to make sure you have your paint. Now today I'm using the colors Bright Yellow, Burnt Sienna, Mars Black, Titanium White, Phthalo Blue, and Bright Red. You also want to make sure that you have something to draw with. You can draw with a pencil first and then use a permanent marker, or you can use a black permanent marker, just a regular Sharpie, to get your drawing on. Now again, this one is for anybody. Anybody can do this one and have fun with it, but it's specifically for the kiddos. So if your kid is not old enough to draw it on their own, I do suggest you drawing it out for them and then allowing them to go step by step and paint it with you. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I want to do is I want to get my drawing on. So I'm going to start by drawing the moon because again we're doing a Halloween moon. And I want to do a crescent shaped moon. So I am going to do a C to start off with, and I'm just doing it pretty large. This C is going to take up a good amount of my canvas. Now when you do your C, you want it closer to the top. So you see I only have a little room at the top, but I have a wider gap at the bottom. You want less room at the top, more room at the bottom. So you want to do a really wide C. Now, I'm going to do a smaller C on the inside to create my crescent. So I'm starting back here, but I'm not going to follow the same line, but I am following the same shape. So you see how? So now you have your crescent moon. Now with the crescent moon, we're going to be adding in a few things. And of course, it's Halloween. We have to have a pumpkin. So what I'm going to do for my pumpkin, I'm going to do 3 simple curves to get my pumpkin on. All I want to do right in the middle, so directly in the middle of the canvas and right on top of my moon, I am going to draw a curve. So almost like I'm drawing an upside down U. And you see I'm just drawing right over the crescent moon. But you want to start with that curve in the middle. Now from that curve, you're going to, on one side, do another curve, but this time you want to round it out and take it right to the bottom. Same thing over here. Round it out and take it to the bottom. So now you have the shape of your moon. Super simple, super easy. Again, you can do that with pencil first and then use the marker, or you can do that step with markers. But once you have your moon and your pumpkin, we are going to go ahead and start to paint. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get my background completely filled in. Now again, this is a spooky Halloween moon painting. So you can do your background a few different colors or whatever color you like. Some spookier colors would be definitely a dark blue, which is what we're going to do. You could do a darker purple, you could do green, but again, this is your painting, so you can do the color of your choice. But I am starting out with my large flat brush, and I am simply just going to be picking up some blue and white. But the first thing I want to do is I want to mark off my corners. So on my corners, I'm going to make a curve. Now the most important part about this curve is you don't want to curve up going towards the corner. So you don't want to make like a smiley face in the corner. You want to make a curve over. So you want it to be more of a frowny face. That way it curves down. You want the curve to kind of follow the curve of the moon. Same thing on the corners. You want that curve to follow that curve of the pumpkin. Now, everything inside of those curves, so I'm not going to do my corners just yet, but everything inside, including right next to the moon, right next to the pumpkin, I'm going to get all of that completely filled in. So we're just going to work on filling in that part. And again, you can do the color of your choice to really make it your own. I am going to keep picking up blue and a little bit of white for this part. Keep in mind, the more white you pick up, the lighter your background is going to be. So I'm not going to keep picking up a lot of white. I'm going to pick up just a little white every now and then to give it some different hues in my background or some different shades of blue. But I'm mainly just picking up blue because this is the nighttime. The moon is out, so we want it to be a bit darker. And it's a Halloween painting, so we want it to be a little spooky. So we're just going to work on getting the background filled in for now, and then we'll move to the next step together in a few. All right, now once you have the entire background filled in except for the corners, we want to finish those corners up last because we want the corners to be just a little bit darker. So for the corners, I'm not washing my brush off, but I'm going to pick up blue and a little bit of black to make it darker. Now remember, if you get a different color, then you just want to mix up a darker shade of whatever you did. So for example, if you did green and your green was a bit lighter, or even if it was like more of a middle tone kind of forest green, you want to add a little more blue or a little black to your green mixture to make it darker. And that goes again for any color you use. You want the corners to be a darker shade. So now I'm going in with that blue and black, and I'm working my way in to my other blue. So you see how I didn't just do the corner, I overlapped what I already had just a bit. So I'm working from the corner and I'm going back and forth across, and I overlap what's already there. And because what's already there should still be wet, it'll blend right in. So same thing here, work from the corner and then overlap what you already did. So that way, the corners should be the darkest points of your background. Now we're going to move into the moon. Now for this part, you do want to go ahead and wash your brush out. Now for the moon, you can use just white by itself. You can use white and a little bit of yellow if you want more of a yellow moon. It's completely up to you. But I'm going in with just white first. And you'll notice that because your background is still a little wet, when you get towards the edges, it will pull some of that color in there. That's completely fine. Just keep picking up your white only and still using that bigger brush. And you're just going to fill your moon in. Now the only part I'm not doing, you see how the moon, or we drew the pumpkin over the moon? You want to go ahead and skip right past that part, but you do want to make sure to get this little piece of the moon that is sticking out from behind the pumpkin. You want to get that little part, but everything else that the pumpkin overlaps, you want to leave it as is. So again, as you're doing this part, if you notice in my moon, you can see how some of that blue is coming right in there. That's completely fine. Now, even though I already have little bits of blue in my moon, I am going to pick up a little more white, and I'm going to pick up the smallest amount of yellow, so just a little teeny tiny bit of yellow, and I'm going to add that into my moon as well. And you want to make sure you blend that part out really, really good Really get that blended in there while your white is still wet. That way it doesn't just stand out. I'm going to put a little more there too. Now, we have our background, we have our moon. Before we can add any of the little fun, cute details, we have to fill in our pumpkin. So for the pumpkin, you can wash your brush out. Because I have white and yellow on my brush, I'm not going to wash it out. But if you have a lot of like your blue or a lot of another color that you use for your background on your brush still, go ahead and wash your brush out. But once you're ready, right on your plate, you're going to take some of your yellow. You're going to take a bit of red, just a small amount of red. I'm going to get just a little more yellow. And I'm going to also get a little bit of white and mix those together. Now, if you already have some orange paint, you can definitely use orange paint. If you don't have orange paint, you're going to mix up yellow with a small amount of red and a little bit of white. Keep in mind, as you're mixing your orange, the more yellow you use, the brighter your orange will be. The more red you use, the darker your orange will be. So I always suggest start out with more yellow and add your red in slowly until you get the shade that you like. And from there, you are just simply going to fill in your pumpkin. Now, as you can see, because I did not wash my brush out and it still had some bits of white in it, you'll see it's blending out different shades of orange. And even when I get next to my background, it's pulling in a little bit of blue. That's completely fine. You just want to make sure that whatever colors it's pulling in or blending in on there, that you do long strokes, nice long strokes to get all of those colors blended out. And I'm going to fill in the entire pumpkin. So you see there how I got some bits of blue in there. But because orange is made up of yellow, if you blend those bits of blue out, it's going to turn more of like a brown or even green color. And that's perfect for your pumpkin. But you want to get everything filled in and blended out really well. And before we're done with the pumpkin, I want to add some different shades of color. Now, we did do the drawing of the moon over the pumpkin, so if you can still see some of those lines, you can always let your pumpkin dry for about 5 minutes and then add another coat on top. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a little bit of red, and I'm just going to very quickly blend that out on there just to get some darker areas. And this, when you do this step, it's super important that you do this while your paint is still wet. If you're going to add this darker red, you want to do it while your paint is still wet. And I'm only going in with a little bit and then blending it out. I'm going to do the same thing with a little bit of yellow. And if you notice, when I'm doing this part, I'm kind of going inside of each separate curve to keep the shape of the pumpkin. So I'm not just going straight up and down. I'm putting a little bit inside of that curve, a little bit in that curve, a little bit in that curve. The last one I'm going to do is a little bit of white. The white will just kind of highlight your pumpkin and make it pop. And now you have all those different color variations going on. You can even come back to the bottom and kind of pull some from the bottom. But you have all those color variations going on. You got your moon, you got your dark background or your spooky background. But before we can add anything else, we have to let this dry. So remember, if you don't want to take a drying break, you can always blow dry it with a blow dryer on cool setting. Or you can give yourself about a 10 to 15 minute break, grab some drinks, grab some snacks, and then we'll start back on the next step together in a few.
3 days later.
All right, so now that our paintings are dry, we're going to add a few more details on to really make this a Halloween moon. So the first thing I want to do, I'm going to switch to my medium-sized brush. And I want to add some details to my pumpkin first. So the first thing I want to add is I want to add a stem at the top. So in the middle curve, so you see how you have that curve? On the middle curve, I am going to make a little rectangle. And I'm just going to fill that in. Now I'm using just brown, so my burnt sienna, but I'm also going to go in with a little bit of white on my brush with the brown and go over that just so that it has a little more color to it and you can see it more. Now, if you like the lighter brown, you can stick with that. Or another thing you can also do, I'm going to take a little brown and black. And I'm going to add that in a few little areas. So I'm not going to cover the whole thing with brown and black, just one side of it. So you see how I have a darker side, a little bit of a lighter side, or you can keep it one tone. It's completely up to you. Now, I also want to add in some little leaves. So for the leaves, I'm actually not going to wash my brush, but right on my plate, I'm going to take some blue and some yellow, and I'm just going to mix those up. So you don't have to wash the brown out. It'll mix right into the green. And keep in mind, the more yellow you use, the lighter your green will be. The more blue you use, the darker it'll be. Once you get the shade you want, I am going to do a leaf here, and all I'm doing is doing a curve up. So a curve over and a curve under. And you want to make sure that it looks like, you can do it right on top of the pumpkin. I'm kind of doing mine where it looks like it's kind of sitting behind the pumpkin a bit. So I'm not overlapping the pumpkin. I'm kind of staying right on top of it. But for my other one, I am going to do it right on top of the pumpkin. So I'm going to curve over, curve under, and fill it in. Now, if you like this one, you can do both like this one, or you can do, you don't have to do two. You can do one, or you can do as many as you like. It's up to you. But before I finish with that, I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush, and I'm just going to go in and do a white line there, and a white line there, just to give it a little highlight, little detail to it. Now we're done with that part. Now, because I was only working with green, I'm still not going to wash my brush out. What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to go right into some black, and I'm going to make a little cat. Now, if you don't like cats, you can leave this part out if you like it how it is. But I am going to add a little cat. Now, the first thing I want to do, I want to sit my cat right here, like right on my pumpkin. So I'm going to make a bit of an oval. So I'm starting with a bit of an oval there. And again, I'm using black. Now, what I'm going to do to round the bottom of my cat out a little bit, I'm going to come from the side here, and I'm going to make a little, see I made almost like a little W, like I'm making a little dent in there. Same thing here, just so that it has a little point there. And then I'm going to fill that in. And remember, I did not wash my brush because I want, even though it's going to all pretty much be black, I do want a little bit of variation of colors to come out. Now from there, I'm going to add the head. Now for the head, I'm just doing a small circle right on top, and I'm going to fill that in. And of course, we have to add our little cat ears. So I'm going to add 2 triangles on top of the head. And I'm going to fill it in. 2 triangles to make my little cat ears. And we can't forget the tail. Now for the tail, I'm going to curve mine this way. You can curve it whichever way, but I'm going to curve it on the opposite side, kind of curving the same way the moon is curving. Now, I'm going to come from the side here. So I'm starting inside of the body. And I'm going to work my way towards the top. but I'm not going above the head. I'm going to go kind of right where the head and body meet. And I'm going to do a little curl. Just a little curl there. And you can go back in and fix your little curl up. And you just want to make sure that the entire cat is filled in with black. Now, I am going to add a little bit of highlight to it the same way I did the leaves. So I'm going to add a little bit of white to my brush. And I am going to add a little line there. I'm going to do a little line on the ear. One on the head there. And I'm going to do a little one on the tail. Now, these little highlight lines, the little white lines, are completely up to you. But wherever you put them, you want to make sure that you're following the curve that's already there. So I did the line there, the ear. I did a curve where the head is, the body, and also the tail, but you want to follow that curve. Now we want to add a few more details to finish our Halloween moon up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch to my smallest brush, or a little teeny tiny brush. And I'm just using white for this part. And this is completely optional, but I want to add a few little curly cues or a few little curls to my pumpkin, like they're like little vines that's sticking out. So for example, here, I'm going to go out, curl, and out. And you can go back in and fix your little curls. Same thing here. And I started right from my stem. I'm going to add one actually on the pumpkin too. So a little curl. And again, that's completely optional. But while I'm working with this white in my small brush, I'm also going to add a few little highlight lines. So for example, the same way I did on the pumpkin and on the leaf, I'm going to do a small one on the stem here. And I'm also going to outline the actual pumpkin a bit. I'm going in and kind of bringing those curves back out. So those little 3 sections we started with, I'm going to highlight those and bring the curves of the pumpkin back out. Same thing over here. I'm just going to pull the line there. I'm going to pull a little line here. Wherever you want to see curves or division in your pumpkin, you can add these lines. And once you've added that, if there's any extra details that you would like to add, maybe you want to write Happy Halloween, maybe you want to add like a little spider or something. Whatever you want to add is completely up to you. But the last thing you want to make sure to do is simply sign your name. So I'm just adding my initials right in the corner. But once you've done that, you are all done with your Halloween moon. Thank you all so much for painting with me today. I hope you enjoyed your Halloween moon and that spooky season is off to a great start for you all. Remember, like, comment, and subscribe and turn on those post notifications, and I will see you in the next tutorial.